Mother's heart rate looks fine, Doctor. Good.
Let me see the baby's heart rate, please.
Doctor, it hurts.
Breathe.
I know. You're doing fine.
Okay, here it comes.
Oh, no.
Baby's heart rate increasing too.
Push hard. I can't. It's biting me. What's wrong? Doctor, talk to me.
This can't be.
What's wrong? What's wrong with my baby?
The Fly 2. A new generation is born.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Unipod. Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to another Puny Pod, a short-form podcast where we visit a specific film or comic book all by myself. Yes, back again. Sorry for the delay. It should have been out on Friday this, but sometimes life gets in the way. Sadly, Dennis and I were planning to do a Poltergeist podcast, but Dennis is having some family issues, so all of our love again to Dennis for not being able to make this one. But I'm doing something different, so I'm not going to do Poltergeist by myself. We'll probably do that at some point in the future. We'll get around to it. It'll happen. But we've got Jaws coming up, Jaws the Revenge for Alternativity Stories, which will begin next Friday. And I'm going to work on that today as well, and some other Patreon stuff. So lots of stuff coming your way for the next few months. Well worth it. I'm really looking forward to it. I think I'm recording the Batman Returns one next week as well, so and I'm going to book quite a bit of time off, so there'll be more than enough time to get it all done, because I still got a lot of time off I've not used, so I will use it very soon. And yeah, so holidays coming, la 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 la. So here we are. But yeah, I'm doing a little... so this is what I've kind of been doing on Patreon. If you're not a patron, I've been looking at sequels to comic book sequels to movies. So these are sequels that are a continuation of either a movie, TV show, video game, or expanding the universe that we never really got elsewhere. So we never got a sequel to certain films, then we get them here. So yes, so I'm looking at there's a reason I'm looking at The Fly Outbreak, which is a sequel to The Fly 2. So the David Cronenberg film of the 1980s, amazing, disgusting body horror, absolutely one of his best, one of my favourites as well. It's disgusting. It's one of the films that makes me feel a little bit sick, but in a good way. Every time I watch it, I'm like, ooh, this is hard to stomach stuff, but that's why it's so good. One of Jeff Goldblum's best, Gina Davis's best. It's just great. It's great for special effects and you name it. Brilliant. I've still not seen the original 50s ones, but I would like to give them a go at some point. Anyway, the reason I'm doing this is because Megan and Mike on their Patreon watched The Fly quite recently, and they started at the end just slagging off The Fly 2 without having seen it. I don't like that. Because I think The Fly 2 is pretty good. Does it hold up to the first one? Does it hold up to the Cronenberg one? Absolutely not. But I think it's a fairly serviceable monster movie if you're looking for shocks and scares and gruesome stuff, and it had to be quite different, and it is from the original. There are a lot of similarities, obviously. A guy turns into a giant fly. That is going to happen, but I think it's really well shot. I think it's got a great villain. I think it's got one of the better endings to the better kind of ramifications for a villain's actions. Some creepy and weird stuff that happens. A character returns from the first film. There's a lot of references. Well, I get technically two characters, but not the original actor returns. But yeah, I think it's cool. It's interesting. If you're a fan of dogs, probably not the film for you. Spoilers, but it's not nice to dogs necessarily. Well, I mean, there's a nice moment with the dog. There's two nice moments with the dog, and then there's pretty horrible and sad and depressing stuff that happens to dog as well. So but yeah, I like it. I won't spoil it really, but I will have to talk about this comic, the sequel. But check it out. I genuinely, I see it as a Psycho 2. Is it as good as the original? No. But is it still serviceable as a film? I agree. I think it is quite a solid monster science fiction film. Again, I think I have a soft spot as well because I saw it first. I want to say I saw it on Channel 5 or something. And I thought it was quite interesting when I found out there is actually a sequel, a comic book sequel to this. I went, wow, that's really interesting that they didn't maybe, do their own sequel to the original or, come up with a different thing. But I guess that film ends pretty solidly and with some finality. And yeah, so I can understand why they made this. I know Gina Davis was looking to do something similar called Flies. I think there's a Joe Blow video on that if you want to have a look at what that could have turned out or been. I think it was going to be a kind of a Halloween kills ends type thing, maybe, where Gina Davis returns to the role many years later. But yeah, I think it's pretty solid. I'll get into a few bits and pieces because they will come up. The Fly 2, you follow Martin Brundle, who is the son of Seth Brundle, I want to say, from the first one, and Gina Davis's character, who I sadly can't remember her name off the top of my head. She opens with her giving birth, and it's like a horrible kind of cocoon thing. Pull apart this kind of cocoon thing, and the baby comes out, and he's a mutant. Surprise, surprise, because Seth was half fly at this point, so his genes and genetic disease or transmutation, whatever you want to call it, is passed down to Martin, who is raised a bit Homelander style, if you've seen The Boys, just in a lab, and he's grown up. He's insanely smart. He's got slowly over his life becoming this character. He's a grown adult by the time he's 5 years old, and his brain is super intelligent. He's making all these gadgets and things. And this Bartok Industry, who helped create or got the funding for Seth to create the telepods from the first film, they are basically kind of studying this, and they're still trying to work out how to get the telepods working right, because they weren't still not necessarily perfect. And Martin grows up and he sees that they experiment on animals, and unfortunately the dog comes out of the telepod and it's all fucked up. And yeah, so he's a bit kind of disconnected, he's a bit socially awkward, a bit weird, but he meets Beth Logan, who is the love interest. I think she's a great character. She's lovely, she's nice, she's very down to earth. She's a fly fishing fan, but she's not like your typical like damsel in distress. I think there are moments where she does kick some ass and she doesn't put up with anybody's shit, but I think she understands that Martin's a bit shy, a bit, he's not been very social. Bartok himself, he tries to treat him like a son, but he basically can't wait for him to turn into a fucking fly, because it's going to create super soldiers, and the telepods can do this genetic engineering type thing. They can blend, races and creatures together. As military applications, I don't go into it too much, but there's certain things they can do beyond just teleporting. Like he talks about, being able to have surgeries without, cutting people open. You're able to remove, tumours and organs or whatever, and put stuff in as well. And slowly but surely we learn of the conspiracy and what is happening to Martin and the history and he learns what happened to his dad and his mum, who died in childbirth at the beginning of this film. That's why he's raised by the Bartok industry, because the world doesn't really know he exists. Yeah, and slowly but surely he becomes more and more fly-like until the big finale, which is proper gross practical effects, really, really just disgusting fun, really gruesome, some really gruesome deaths, like some acid deaths, some great shots. There's a really good shot where Martin Fly, if you wish, throws a guy at a door that is just opened by another character, and then they closes it as the character hits it. I think that's a great shot. I think the design of Martin is very different from the Seth Brundle design, but I like that it's different because he's grown into his form, and it's almost more human-like because of that, because he's aged with it and it was always a part of him, as opposed to like this dramatic kind of transformation. You still get the body horror kind of stuff, like falling off, body parts falling off and shit like that, but I think it's a solid monster movie. I will spoil the ending, so if you've not seen The Fly 2, I would go away and watch it, because I think it's, again, it's very serviceable. I think it's fun. It does stuff well. I think it's a little I'd say it's a little sweeter as a film, but again, that kind of adds to the horror of what happens and what the Bartok industry, and Anton Bartok is a fucking great villain name, by the way. Like that is a villainous name if I've ever heard one. So and basically, yeah. So we get the sequel. So The Fly, Outbreak, from IDW, who are known for doing basically licensed products like The Fly. So that's why they turn up a lot in these videos and stuff, podcasts rather. So IDW published it. It was written by Brandon Seifert, who is the writer of Witch Doctor, which I was a massive fan of. I love that comic. It's proper weird, Lovecraftian, bizarre, very, very in the kind of Reanimator vein, that book. So I would definitely check that one out. I think the first volume is better than the second, but that's just my preference. And it's written by so it's Brandon Seifert with Denton J. Tipton, and with the art by Menton 3, I think is how you say that, with David Stupakis, I want to say. Following the end of the film. So the end of the film, Martin manages to grab Bartok, take him into the telepod, and because he's figured out that he can transfer his bad genes over to a new donor, basically, if they both step inside the telepod. And he manages it. Comes out, Bartok is this horrible, dishevelled creature, much like the dog at the beginning of the film that they keep alive and Martin has to put down. This is why I said if you're a dog person, it's probably not the film for you. It might make you cry because it is quite sad, but it's done very, very well. And yeah, I think the performances are good, writing's good, music is great, effects are great, solid. I think it's very underrated as a sequel. Again, not a patch on the first one, but if you want more Fly content, there you go. But yes, so we have that, and Bartok ends, and he's just like this poor dishevelled dog who's kept alive and struggles to eat and just in constant pain. Bartok is now living that, so that's his destiny. So The Fly Outbreak picks up years after that. So I imagine the Bartok Industries, they kind of avoid it, but I think they basically say, right, we'll just sweep everything under the carpet. We'll try and help Mr. Bartok. The only person who can help him is Brundle, so let's keep him working here, I guess. But it's a really interesting story. The art style is very reminiscent of Max Payne. If you've ever played that game, it's kind of... There's an edge of digital, kind of painted artwork as well. It's kind of a mix of both. Kind of a little web comic-y in a good way, in a positive way. There's lots of kind of like splattered. It's black and white mostly, apart from the odd splash of colour of green and red, and very muted colours for the most part. But I think that kind of adds the more kind of interesting kind of creature elements, because they tend to be red and green, and those are the kind of two main colours that stick out. So I really do like the inking. There's a bit of a kind of a scratchy art style as well, with kind of the borders of the panels and things. So there is a definite style to the presentation, and they use the likenesses, or kind of the likenesses, of the characters from the films. They're not exactly like them, like Daphne Zuniga, who is in the film. She's from Spaceballs, if you haven't seen that. She's great in it, and yeah, like it's produced by Mel Brooks, the Fly 2 as well, which I think is funny. And he was going to have a cameo, but he said, "Nah, it's a horror love story. There's no point me being it because people think it's a comedy." And he does have some funny moments, but yeah. So Brundle is trying to cure Bartok of what he did to him. So he feels guilty and responsible, and there's a weight to what he's done. He didn't just do it kind of like, for funsies. He did it to cure himself, but he knows what he's done, and he still feels like he's his dad. Bartok is the man who raised him, shows him magic tricks and things like that. And yeah, it was he has a relationship, and I can understand why he would still feel obligated, even though he was a horrible man and he does kind of admit, he's like, yeah, you were a monster actually. So so he's experimenting. He's got this assistant called Nolani, who is very friendly with Martin. A lot of banter, a lot of humour comes from her, and she's a really good character, really interesting. We kind of see a bit more of that. We see that Beth and Martin's relationship has matured as he's matured, so he's not quite the awkward, weird, kooky scientist like, oh yes, science and good things. He's not as robotic as he was. He's a bit more like a human being now. And again, we get kind of an Eric Stoltz look for him. There's a picture of the original Anton Bartok in there, so the actor who played him. Again, that name's escaping me, but we get that, and we get all the likenesses of those main characters from The Fly 2. Everybody else is a unique or original character. And yeah, so Beth is they really go into the kind of, obviously this is based on The Fly 2, but there's a lot more from The Fly 1 in here in terms of themes and sexuality. Like Cronenberg loves to explore the connections between sex and disease and death, and like almost every single film he does, every body horror film, there's some sort of link, The Brood, or even the mixing of technology in there with something like Videodrome or scanners, and he's always kind of playing with that, and I think those are some of his best films when he explores that kind of stuff. I know there's a similar sort of thing in Crimes of the Future as well, like body modification as well. I'm always fascinated by his work. It's always really, really interesting to me. Even his stuff that's not about body horror, like History of Violence or Eastern Promises. He's one of my favourite directors just because he's so fucking interesting, and I don't mind him as an actor as well. He's pretty good when he makes his odd cameo here and there in Jason X or Nightbreed or something like that. But yeah, there is a bit of light BDSM, and there's a bit of sex as well that kind of comes with the transformations within the film, within the comics. Sorry. So yeah, we kind of have that link, because it is all about infections and passing on. Like Beth really wants to have unprotected sex with Martin, and he's disagreeing because he thinks he may be able to either pass on his genes. He's also had a vasectomy, and he's like, "Oh, I want kids," and his assistant's like, "Your vasectomy says not," and he was like, but he doesn't want to pass any potential diseases or genetic mutation or anything like that on to Beth, and she's like, kind of keeps putting the walls up a little bit. He keeps kind of keeping her at a distance. You know, he doesn't want to almost fully commit to the relationship, even though it's been going on for a few years. I think maybe they were looking at getting married or something like that. But he describes it as boogie jeans. Ha ha ha. So we do get a bit more of that kind of. It almost combines the Fly 2 with the Fly 1 in that respect, and the themes that they're playing with, and how openly, you know, hypersexualized the kind of. I mean, the characters aren't sexualized, but there is a sexuality to this story, and it does play a big part in this story. He's trying to cure Bartok, and it fails again, so he's like, shit, I've done it again. However, when they return to the cell, like the day after, we find out that Bartok had formed a cocoon and comes out as a new version of the fly creature, which is a bit more kind of more beautiful kind of design. It's they kind of look more like grasshoppers in a way, like these big red eyes, the bright green. I don't think they have as many arms, if I remember rightly, but that is his new form, and he is clever enough, and he escapes, and he accuses Martin of creating him, turning him into a monster, and he's like, no, you were a monster, Bartok. And then he is shot down by the security of the Bartok Industries, and everyone is covered in the blood of the Bartok fly. And everyone's worried about the infection and mutations, and they take them to basically wash them all down, and they're like, we've got to be sure that you're not infected with anything, or that you're passing it on. You know, it's a genetic, disease that can be transmitted. And, there is a lot of, in that first film as well, there is a lot of kind of, it's basically, I see it as an allegory for the kind of AIDS crisis. And I think you can definitely see that when his body is kind of betraying itself and falling apart, skin's falling off and things like that. It's really fucking, if you think about it in that level and that way, it's terrifying that your body can, is constantly trying to kill you, constantly trying to die. But yeah, it's fucking horrible. I can't even imagine what that would be like. It's really disturbing, but it works because that was a fear of the 80s, and it's still a relevant fear to have. So anyway, this is going on very long, so I'm going to get to the point. Anyway, so everyone goes, they take them to North Brother Island, which I believe is a real location, because Martin says that Typhoid Mary spent her last couple of decades of her life there isolated, so she couldn't infect anybody with typhoid. So Martin manages to contact Beth and let her know, because he's trying to come up with a cure, see what what will happen, what will become of people. Are they infected? Is Martin infected? He doesn't know, but he feels it's his responsibility. He created this, he started this, now he's got to finish it. He's got to figure it out somehow. And there's an army soldier and a scientist. I think Dr. Merriweather and Colonel Verkin or something like that. Anyway, they're there, and they're interchangeable because they just look exactly the same. They've got these gas masks, hazmat suits on. And he contacts Beth, and he's like, I can't speak to you because I'm trying to figure out a cure. He's keeping her at a distance, kind of letting her know where he is, what's happening. But he's like, I've got to focus. I've got to make sure I do this. I can't leave this place until everyone's cured. And then slowly but surely he kind of explains, as he's explaining the kind of the symptoms of transformation, like you become psychotic, you become confident, you get superpowers, you become hypersexual, and we're showing this through two of the other people that are infected, and they're having unprotected sex, infecting each other, and then they get to see further and further the symptoms. Like the male counterpart in that sex scene starts trying to attack Martin and blaming him, picks up like a big row of huge table and chairs, those kind of dining room chairs that are all connected with the table and the bench and stuff. He's trying to throw one of those at him, and we get to a point where Nolani interrupts an intimate video call with Beth and Martin, and she's like, what I really like about this book is it keeps using the buzz sound effect, but not for flies themselves. I quite like that they keep bringing it up, and one of my favourite ones is when they're having a dirty video call, let's call it, and she brings out a vibrator, and obviously it's buzz buzz, and the phones go buzz buzz, and I just appreciate it. It was a little detail I just really really enjoyed, and yeah, I just like that. I like the use. I think the onomatopoeia, the sound effects in a comic are an art form in themselves, and I think they should be used to that effect. And it made me chuckle, made me laugh, so it entertained me. So yeah, the fly outbreak is fun. So slowly but surely, more and more people become infected. They form these cocoons. Martin's still trying to figure it out. And we get to a point where all hell breaks loose. They all form these cocoons. They all come out. They all look like Bartok, so these exact same looking fly creatures, which I think is a good design. They're kind of a bit alien-like. They're a bit more beautiful. They're a bit more humanoid looking. They can fly. And Nolani is, she interrupts him, tries to have sex with him, and gets really fucking cross at him because this is his fault. They put her on antipsychotics, but then Beth turns up. It all breaks loose. The flies escape. They're trying to kill them. The doctor and the colonel die, or the army guy dies. I'm really rushing through this now, but it's quite short. Yeah, so we get all that. Beth comes to rescue him. She's in all this like black camo. She's got a gun. She's got some night vision goggles, which I think that kind of fits her character. There's a bit of a, again, that kind of attitude, that almost Ripley-esque attitude, I think is good. And I think it fits her because she's a real kind of get him character, and I really appreciated that she's so like, Martin's like, I need to distance myself from you, and she's like, no, you're fucking not. And there's so many people I know like that, so many women I know like that, and I really appreciated that. And she's like shooting down the flies and any other soldiers that get in the way, and Martin's like, I can't leave until we figure this out. And then they bump into Nolani, who's disguised herself as a soldier, and takes her mask off, and she has the face of one of these creatures. She's not fully there yet, but she's well on her way. Martin basically she forces Martin to get in the telepod because he's revealed how to cure her of the fly infection. She vomits on the gun and puts it to his face and kind of burns his face. And he agrees to do it because he cares, and he's obviously he doesn't want Beth hurt. So gets in, she's cured, and then he becomes the fly creature again, which looks, again, the artwork's really good here because it looks exactly like the version of it in the film. So in Fly 2, so he doesn't become this new version of Fly, it becomes the version that he was in the Fly 2, the big green spiky jawed kind of character, which I really appreciate. And it's spot on, not every image, because if it was every image looked like Eric Stoltz and every image looked exactly like Beth Logan from the film, Daphne Zuniga, if they looked like those, then they'll probably have to pay some rights or get permission or something, so they don't look exactly the same, but there are shots where I'm like, yeah, that's definitely an Eric Stoltz picture that they've based that on, or that's a Daphne Zuniga picture that they've based that on. So you can, I appreciate they went to some level to get the likenesses of those characters. But yeah, so he comes back and Beth's like, we've got to go. She's like, what are you on about? And she was like, yeah, Martin's not antipsychotics, and he comes out and he's like, rah! And he's just like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to murder everyone, I don't know how I'm going to kill you, but it's going to be fucking gross, and you're going to be torn apart and, melted by fly vomit. And he gets the ability to fly as well, which he didn't have in the Fly 2. So he gets to see him sprout wings, and eventually he's kind of convinced and talked down to kind of fix everything. I won't spoil the ending because I think you should read it. The only thing I will say, it does end a bit abruptly. That was my main issue with it. But I think I've read this before, so I enjoyed it before. I knew I'd enjoy it again. I think it's a nice follow up. I think it's good. I think the style is good. The artwork is great. I think the writing is quite humorous at times as well. It's got this darkly kind of dirty sexual humor to it as well, which I appreciate. And again, I think it's in line with the films, the way Cronenberg does what he does in his films and what he wants to explore. There's a little bit of that. So there's kind of there's a reverence for the stuff, the stuff that's come before, the films that have come before, the lore of The Fly. So I appreciated all aspects of that. There's probably a few more references to the original films, the 50s films or 60s films, but I've not seen those, so I probably don't know what they are. But I like the nods that they do reference, like Beth still lives on the boat that she did in the film. They have a dog who is like a golden retriever or a Labrador, whichever dog was in The Fly 2, whichever breed. It's one of those. I always get those two confused because they're so similar. But yeah, I think I want to say golden retriever, actually. I'm going to say golden retriever. But anyway, I guess they're well-trained, aren't they? So yeah, that would make sense in the film, in the context of the film anyway. But yeah, go seek it out. I think it's good. I believe it's still available on Comixology. I don't know, but I'll see if I can find a link for you guys just to give it a go. Check out The Fly 2 if you can. I do think it's worth looking at, and I think this is a nice sequel to that. It's got, again, the artwork I really like. I'm a big fan of that. I think sometimes it doesn't work, but it varies from panel to panel. I think some panels look amazing and they're fun. It's a different visual style than most comic books, but I appreciate that it's a bit more like a Bill Sienkiewicz. I appreciate that for what that is. But yeah, no, check it out. Check the film out. Check them both out. It's up to you. Again, I love the original. You can't fault it. But I think give it a try. If you go in with an open mind and you're not expecting, the first film, I think you can get a lot out of it. It's fun. It's interesting. Bit different. There's some really creepy, disgusting moments, great action sequences, horror sequences. Again, the music's fantastic. And yeah, I like it. So Mike and Megan, you're wrong. I just wanted to say you're wrong. It's a fun film. So I think Mike and Megan should go and watch it and then come back to me, see what they think. They probably won't like it, but that's up to them. Again, I appreciate their opinions, but I don't appreciate when you haven't seen it and you have opinions. Give it a go. I think as sequels go, it's underappreciated. So there we are. But yeah, so I just wanted to defend Fly 2 after hearing that Patreon review of the original Fly from themselves. So if you want to hear what they have to say about the Fly and the Fly 2, go over to the Genuine Chit Chat Patreon. If you are not already subscribed, do it because they're great. I love them. They're both brilliant people. They're just judging films before they see them. That's all. Don't do it. But I will say that I said I've heard Cars is crap, and I haven't seen it. So I'm just as bad, really, because they're keen on Cars for some reason. So maybe I'll check that out as well. So I'm not a hypocrite. I don't want to be a hypocrite. So there we are. But yeah, you know where to find me, guys. So it's at Dan_Bores on Twitter. Oh yeah, I've got new social media, I forgot to say. So I'm on Hive as well. I'll post that probably at some point. I think I put it under... I want to say it's Dan_Bores as well. I will just double check that as well while we're here. Why not? Okay, it's just Dan Bores. So no underscore. I don't think it allowed me to do an underscore. So it's Dan Bores on Hive, and I believe on Mastodon it is still... Yeah. So it's Dan_Bores at Mastodon.world. So at Dan_Bores at mastodon.world. I can now post on YouTube as well, so I'm going to do some posts on there and some polls maybe. So if you're on YouTube or if that's how you listen, that is always an option. I've been off the social media for a little bit now, just to kind of... I just wanted a bit of time away because it was getting a bit much for me, I think. So I'm still going on there. I just haven't actively posted anything for a while, just to kind of give myself a break and sort my bloody head out. But it's all good. I'm looking forward to Alternativity Stories. I hope you guys are. It's my favourite season that I do. It's always a bit tight because obviously recording around Christmas is a bit difficult for a lot of people, so I always do try and record a little earlier. But yeah, so I've not done that yet, so I'm gonna have to catch up. So I'm going to get started on that now. I'm going to do for Patreon, I'm going to do more of these kind of extensions, prequels, sequels to movies. But over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to do 3 Die Hard comics. So Die Hard Year 1, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And then I'm also going to do a 3rd comic, which is A Million Ways to Die Hard as well. So my own little Die Hard trilogy on Patreon. So I know Jack will like that, and various other people who love Die Hard. Like, who doesn't love Die Hard? What is there not to love about Die Hard? I think I'd have to question somebody if they said, oh, Die Hard shit or something. I'd be like, what? Who are you? Go away. But there you are. So yeah, this is kind of what I do on Patreon. So if you like this, come and listen, come and subscribe. If you're enjoying that, check out the comic, check out the film, check out both, whatever. But we've got some great stuff coming. Again, wonderful guests coming. For Christmas, we're going to be looking at Klaus, Grant Morrison's Klaus, with Dan Morra as the artwork, doing the artwork. We've got Young Sherlock Holmes that I'm going to cover with Max, and we're also going to look at Batman Returns with Andy and Tonya, which I'm looking forward to. And then I think to round off, we'll do Jaws: The Revenge to finish off the year, because I think that's it's a film, but we'll get into that. Dennis is going to defend that one as best he can, so we'll find out what happens with that. I don't know how successful it'll be, but we'll see. I'll need to watch Jaws 3 as well, or Jaws 3D, whichever title you prefer. But yeah, there it is. I've gone on a little longer, but it was a bit of house cleaning, a few things I'd say. The comic is short, but it's sweet. It doesn't need much else. Again, not spoiling the ending, but give it a go. See what you think. So as I said, it's at Dan_Bores on Twitter. I'm still going to use it for the meantime. I don't think it's going to go away. I'll still use it, but I think if it gets much worse, I'll probably come off it. Part of me thinks maybe I don't need these other accounts I've just created, but is what it is. I'll see if I can link any to each other so I don't have to fuck about posting 20 different things on 20 different fucking social medias. But yeah, Secret Bores, at Secret Bores on Facebook, at Spider-Dan Secret Bores on Instagram. Review, like, share, subscribe, comment, etc. And don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle when you interact with us or me or anybody on the old social medias. If you want to join the Prattalion and to be briefed in full on the Secret Bores, so you can go over to hashtag PrattleWorld at SpiderDanandTheSecretBores.com. That's BORES. And I'd like to thank my patrons who've been enjoying all the stuff like this that I've been doing. They are loving that shit. I think I've found my niche. I'm being relatively pretty good, staying on top of that. Makes me read comics as well, which I haven't done for a while. So yeah, fuck it. It's all good. It's all good shit. And these people are amazing. I am Jack's Musings, Simon Cotton, Paul Mellor, Max Byrne, Scott Hodgson, Mike Burton, Angry Andy, Tonya Todd, and Tony Farina. All excellent people. I really do appreciate your patience and your support. Everything you do is brilliant. I love all the content you guys are creating. Even if you're not creating content, you're brilliant people. The fact you listen is amazing. I wouldn't do it. I do say I do this podcast for me and when I want to do it, but I do feel like there's an obligation now, in a good way, that I'm, bringing something to you, giving something of enjoyment and passing on information, ideas, and films you may have never heard of. It's what I do. I've rambled a little bit, but it's been a while. So I'll give it. We'll call it a day there. But if you do ever find yourself in a position to help the podcast, please consider it. That's all I'll say. But this is me signing off again. I'll talk to you next week. Basically, I'll see you then, and we'll talk about Klaus. Talk about the origin of Santa. Batman meets Superman meets Santa. Kind of looks a little bit like Hugh Jackman. But there we are. All right. So I'm going to buzz off because time is flying. Dan, you're so funny. Stop it with the puns.